Welcome, everybody. Valerie Bledsoe here, and I'm excited to share with you a topic that is, I think, very important information we need to get out. It's adaptogens and a healthy menstrual cycle. And as those of you who have joined me before on Monday nights know that I am passionate about empowering people through education so they can take charge of their health. And so let's just jump right in here and let's hear what Miss Allison has to say about our topic.
Hey friends, Val asked me to chat a little bit about my experience with soul herbs and my menstrual cycle, which, man, I have a lot to say about this, but I'll try to be brief. I used to have the typical menstrual cycle that I think a lot of girls my age would complain about having, which is the pain, cramps, headaches, aching, really heavy flows, even irregular flows, etc. I had all of it to the point that when I got into my 20s, it was debilitating. Acupuncture helped when I found acupuncture, but it would only be minimal for the time being, and I would get migraines, etc. When I came to Val and started with soul herbs, I started with just the Soulflex PI, and it helped the first month. I had less pain, but it was over the course of about, I would say, 6 months to a year, where I slowly started to notice that I didn't have any of the premenstrual symptoms anymore. I would get my period and I would say, oh my God, I didn't even know it was coming, just because I usually had those signs, the pain, the moodiness, etc. And if I forget to keep on my regimen of the adaptable and I'm not taking enough of it, I will notice the moodiness come back. But the Soulflex PI, I take it every day. I take it a couple of days, and then a week before my period's going to start, because I'm super regular now. I have a really easy flow. I don't have any struggles. I don't have any pain. I almost welcome it. I don't have any of those feelings like we do, I think, in our society today, where you hear most women complaining about how awful it is and how terrible it is. That was me for the majority of my life up until now. And this last year has really just changed a lot of it. I do have to say it makes a huge difference if you also change your diet and stop eating so much sugar. I cut sugar and a lot of like gluten and just processed foods. That made a huge difference as well. So obviously on top of that, you've got to take care of that and stay active. So I'm a huge supporter when it comes to the headaches that you can get with cramps as well, or with your cycle as well. Someone had mentioned at one point a suggestion of taking Vertizymes in one of our sessions, and probiotics to help with the headaches. Sure enough, probiotics and Vertizymes help me. I'll pop a couple of each if I have a bad headache, and then I'll just monitor it. And as the hours go, every couple of hours, if I'm still feeling it, I'll take that plus a couple more PI, and knocks it out. I haven't taken ibuprofen in I don't know how long, so I'm super grateful.
And I just love Allison's story. I was so grateful because she literally hits on a lot of the different topics that we're going to look at. And really, she's correct. Our cycle should not be something that we have to work life around, that we just plan that we're not productive during those time periods, because that ends up being a huge portion of our life if we are non-functional during those time periods. And there's so many women, unfortunately, that are that way. And so for her to be able to share her story from going all the way from being the extremes to having something that she just doesn't see coming sometimes, and she welcomes it, that's a true testimony to doing the work and staying consistent, and even doing some of the lifestyle changes as well. So that sets it up perfectly for some of the lifestyle choices I wanted to talk about. There are several things that you can do in your everyday life that have an absolute impact in the ability to have a healthy cycle as we go through that. One is, for some of these people, eliminating grains and dairy, because that can be very inflammatory for some people. Avoiding foods with hormones, for instance, utilizing either pasture-raised chicken or grass-fed beef, and those types of animals that they have not come in and utilize hormones in their growth process, or even byproducts of that, like eggs or things like that. So protein with every meal. For some issues, like PCOS, can make a big difference for a lot of these people. No soda, coffee, or iced tea or caffeinated drinks, because of caffeine can increase estrogen dominance. And that's very important, because I do get phone calls about that and understanding that process. Using products that are free of hormone disruptors, also known as xenoestrogens, and having things that are free of other toxic chemicals. So look at your makeup, your laundry products, deodorant, skincare products, making sure you're using BPA-free plastics, etc. All of these things impact us. Think about, if, let's think of, just for instance, two things: your makeup, which you're putting on your skin all the time, and your laundry products, which you're putting on your skin. And remember that skin is the largest organ. So it absolutely will go in and impact the body. The liver starts trying to break it down, get it out of the system, but it's going to affect you. And there's no way around it. It's going to affect you. It's whether or not your system can effectively move the issues out when they show up. One other way to watch for that is to not eat foods that are microwaved in plastics. Of course, I'm a proponent or against utilizing a microwave, but when people are also eating foods that have been microwaved with the plastic on it, you get a whole lot of other type of toxins in the xenoestrogens that affect their body as well. The types of birth control that people are using, whether or not they're using a Depo shot, the Mirena ring. I have gotten so many women that have reached out with issues with that. So again, the type of birth control method that someone's using can impact cycles, and then making certain that the bowels have regular movement. And we will get into more detail on that as well. So what does estrogen dominance look like for someone? It can look like PMS or PMDD, which is an extreme form of PMS. Fibroids, cysts, fibrocystic breast, heavy periods, even an absent period, ovarian cyst, endometriosis, melasma. That's that darker colored patches of skin that can often people see it on the face. Headaches, uterine polyps, cellulite, those can all be symptoms when the body has gotten estrogen dominant. And when it's gotten estrogen dominant, we often see, as you just saw here, a lot of these issues. So there is a definite connection between bowel transit time and reproductive health. Why, you ask? You would not believe how long and hard it took me searching to find a good picture that could show this. So obviously the pink, we're looking here at our uterus and our ovaries. I want you to notice what other body parts are in close proximity of all this. Yeah, you're right. It's your small intestines and your colon. Those have a direct impact on the health of our reproductive tract, because the longer that it takes for the bowels to empty, for instance, if I have someone that comes to see me that maybe their bowels move every 3 days, once a week, or the most extreme I've seen is once in 6 weeks. Well, those toxins start to recirculate, and they get in the blood, they're in the lymphatics, but also remember the colon's job is to reabsorb water before we dump out of the rectum. Well, once it's reabsorbed all the water, then it's now reabsorbing those toxins. And whatever organs are next to each other, they impact each other. So that's all right next to the uterus and the ovaries. And always, if we've had someone with past health issues with their cycles, endometriosis, extreme things like that, looking at the colon is a great place to start because it has direct impact. And as a little side note, how many women have noticed that once they had a hysterectomy, or they had someone come to them that had a hysterectomy, they get this little pooch, this little belly? Well, that's because we remove one of the organs, one of the areas that helps hold up another body part. So think about it like that. And so once that's gone, I mean, it's a different way of working to hold everything in place. So when the bowels don't run regularly, literally, it's like having a train wreck. So I want you to think about it like that. Everything backing up into the other health issues. And again, yeah, people are thinking, what does that have to do with our cycle? It has a lot. Some women even notice that when they cycle, that their bowel all of a sudden catches up and dumps like crazy. Well, that can be tied into depending on whether or not we have endometrial scar tissue that's around and swelling and moving things, or, I mean, there's just multiple things. So just think about it in reverse. There's a definite tie to what's going in. So what types of products will we be looking at here are things that we could do. Number one, drinking water, making certain we're drinking enough water to help that bowel transit time. We're looking at a good probiotic like the Probiotic. Our fast track becomes an option, good vibrations, vertizymes, and even the good track cleanse. All of these are things to help support the potential underlying issues that can be involved with a cycle that's not healthy. So let's look at some of the other stories that people have got for results they've gotten with helping to regulate and change their cycle. This person here had irregular cycles their whole life, even went through infertility testing and a year and a half of acupuncture with nothing working. They said since they started using Soul products, they are regular. And again, I mean, it's awesome. It works so well. It's, sad sometimes when people have gone through so much other direction trying to figure out results. And really, this is a simple way to get the results. Here we have someone that dealt with endometriosis. They also were addressed the lifestyle issues with getting rid of pulling sugar, caffeine, alcohol thing for 2 years. They had 2 surgeries, but what they swear by is the drinks and the Solflex PI. That was the thing that pushed it over the edge and helped everything work. It says her cycles are not only regular, but also not near as heavy or painful. Here's someone that got results. Said the 4 drinks had done more for them in 6 months than all the hormones they'd ever taken combined. And then this one says they had both the endometriosis and PCOS, I believe. It says even after kids, nothing changed. The only thing that changed for them was diet. So supplement wise, they took the maca and the vital regularly. It says on top of the other things that they were doing, it said the vital alone was so helpful. The combination is amazing. I haven't had a painful period or any signs of that extreme PMDD or PMS since being consistent. So with all these people, consistency, it's not a one-shot wonder. Even when you look at Allison, I mean, yes, you can get some results very quickly, but if you really want to build long-term results and start to rid yourself of these issues, then consistency becomes important. So how do you choose where you start? How do you help to guarantee that you hit the target with this? Because really there's multiple different options depending on what's going on. So it's very important to remember that no matter what, adaptogens strive to bring the body into balance. And remember, all the Soul products have got adaptogens in them. And no matter what, they're going to start to help to regulate things. If we have an overactive issue here, it'll help to bring it to more in line. If it's overactive here, it'll help to bring it back down where it needs to be. So if we look at the categories, we're going to start with the balancing category. The balancing category, we will be looking in this type of situation, and I'm sure there's more, but trying to condense this, we'd be looking at things that help with liver support, blood and iron support, adrenals, because adrenals can get involved with this. Our mental outlook. A lot of people, can get really crabby or moody, inflammation, or think about pain, and hormone balancing. So what products does that look like? That looks like our vital. Guys, that chlorophyll is just so important whenever we're on our cycle. So lots of times I always took extra vital when I was on my cycle, and that's what I taught my daughters to do too. And so that vital plays so many different roles with the adaptogens, how it supports that liver, and that liver is very much involved with helping to keep the hormones in balance and keeping that estrogen in check. The adaptable, we heard about Allison and how much that helped her with moods, and the Solflex PI. Because remember, PI stands for pain and inflammation. And so when we're not feeling good, what a nice, safe way to address that without having these side effects that tend to come with NSAIDs. Your longevity, I put this on here because D3 and its involvement with helping to keep hormones balanced. And there's always the potential for there to be underlying issues that have to do with emotion. So putting the Courage Compass blend on there as well. When we look at the lifting category, we might be looking at issues with our cycles that may be tied to sugar cravings. When our cycles are off and aren't in balance and check, then also libido will end up being affected. It's not uncommon at all. Energy levels are certainly impacted, and the thyroid can be impacted. Often we see an underactive thyroid when it comes to issues like this. And so the products, I see how I didn't get that on there. But anyhow, Cinemate is what we're looking at, like Soul Maca XD, the Soul Complete. That would be our good grain-free protein source. And then the Comfort Blend, that's Cinemate. If you think about things like PCOS, there's even some underlying components that can go to blood sugar imbalances. And that cinnamate is very important at help to address that. I've run into far too many people that were diagnosed with PCOS that didn't know that there could be a component with the blood sugar. The soul maca, that maca is so great for helping to regulate a cycle and help bring someone to being 20 every 28 days. So let's look over here now at the calming. The calming category, we might be looking at being overwhelmed, exhausted, and then adrenals. So like you just can't deal with things. And when you're on your cycle and you're feeling like that, whether you're flooding, whether you're just cranky, you're tired, I mean, you just, lots of times women don't want to get out of bed and they literally do not have the energy to do it because everything is so out of whack. So in the calming category, we have things like renew, fair designs, and contentment. And renew does work with overwhelm. It hands down does. In fact, when you combine it with the vital, it becomes a beautiful partner in dealing and challenging with this issue. So, and taking some of the edge off, we want to calm. Remember, this is a calming aspect. That's what that category does. So calming those cramps, helping calming the agitation. Think about it that way. When we look at the clarify category, we're looking at things might be toxins. Think about that bowel that might not be running properly, or even drug exposure that's happened or medication exposure that could be impacting how the cycles run. Swelling, edema, bloating, otherwise that inflammation is causing pain, and the lymphatics. Remember, a lot of women notice changes, the breast will swell before they get their cycle. Your mammary glands, very large portion of the lymphatic system, and the Clarify formulas help to support that. In this case, those products, you might be looking at the ProBio IQ, Soul Megas, Excel, Soul Clear SI, and Confidence. Now I put the Soul Clear SI on there because it's not uncommon for women to deal with ovarian cysts. I personally had ovarian cysts and endometriosis, although I was still as regular as could be every 28 days. But I wish I would have had access to these products when I was younger, because it would have been a whole lot simpler way to address the issue. So keeping these products in mind for challenging this issue, and the Soul Megas, why? Because omega-3s, 6, 9s, 12s, we've got all these in here, can help reduce that inflammation as well. So don't worry if you can't figure out exactly which products to throw in there, because with our adaptogens and the way these formulas are made, they're always going to target those roots that end up affecting or impacting the entire tree or the full expression of it. So no matter what, it starts to get in, and it may have a different impact than you were expecting. And then you can realize it and see, oh, well, this part got affected over here. Maybe what I need to do is come in and maybe add in some renew as well. And then maybe that takes off the finishing little aspect. The important thing is don't get hung up too much on trying to be perfect in your decision, because the way these formulas are designed, they work and get you benefits that you never even necessarily knew were tied in. Like, how many people really realize how the bowels could be tied in with this? Over my years of practice, there's been so many people that I've talked with and educate on that they had no clue that could impact that. So let's say you took ProBio IQ and that was the deal that clenched it. What a surprise. Who would have thought? Well, once you understand the bowel connection, it really doesn't come as a surprise. So we have this brand new testimony that was shared and is really exciting. This person was skeptical, as a lot of people are, because they've tried lots of things. And they said they'd met Tammy, that's Tammy Peterson, and she first tried the probiotic with perfect lead in, considering what I was just sharing. She also ended up trying the adaptable and the Solflex PI. And she said within 1 day, she felt the difference because she was suffering constant pain with her menstrual cycle. And she would also get mood changes, mainly sadness. She said adaptable helped her with her mood and mind and no more cramping pain. And the PI helped her with the inflammation and pain as well. She also dealt with blood clots, and a lot of women these days are dealing with that in a big way. And that combined with the pain would cause her to have to stay in bed all day and miss work. And she literally became non-functional. So she says, thanks, Tammy, and for the soul products, changing my life. These are the kind of stories that are possible. Again, some people will have faster results than others because we're all individual. But the important thing is consistently getting in there, staying with it, and we will watch results come over time. So now I've asked Greg to take a couple minutes and share a little bit, in particular, um, component having to do with yerba mate. So, Greg, do you need me to make you a co-host?
Please, Valerie, and hello and hi, everybody. I have to just say while you're doing that, one of my favorite stories, because you brought up Soul Clear SI, which, we don't think about for cycles. But one of my absolute favorite Soul Clear SI stories is a woman came in who'd had this dry, persistent cough, and she'd had it for months. I think she said like a year. It was a lot of months. It wasn't just a couple of months. And she lived way out in the middle of nowhere. I got the feeling kind of somewhat off grid. And someone had told her about soul, and she shows up at our office, not at the warehouse, at the office. And she got talking with one of the customer support reps, who are not mentors like you all are. And so while they were trying to connect her with a mentor, they just didn't want to send her away with nothing. And so we had just launched Soul Clear SI, and with that little cough, one of them shared that with her. So she actually bought a bottle of that and took it with her. So we got a call, I can't remember, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks, not months. And she said, what is in that? Because first of all, she said, my cough stopped in 4 days. And this is something she could not believe because she'd had it forever. That's gone, hasn't come back. But she said, I didn't tell you guys this, but I haven't had a cycle in 4 months. And within a couple of weeks, my cycle came. What else is in this? And of course, Suma, an adaptogen, and Valerie talked about all the adaptogens. I mean, Soul Vital has 6 of them. So hormone balancing, yes, a lot of adaptogens are. But anyway, that's one of my favorite stories is that, but yeah, your cough might go away. And hey, if your cycle's not regular, we can help with that too, with this same thing. But SI, it's a wonder. Yes, it's a wonder formula. And Valerie's kind of the one who opened our eyes to the breadth of Soul Clear SI, why it's just a great daily. So, okay, yeah, now I've used my whole 2 minutes, but let me show you just a little section of 5 slides from a presentation that Dr. Allison gave that I loved, because this is about Cinnamate, and it's about it's an adaptogen. It's in, one of the main ways that we can deal with this that Valerie's taught today. So she goes over in this presentation, primary metabolites in all the plants and secondary. And she says, okay, the secondary, this is the slide I'm showing here, these vary depending on the plant. And right now, over 100,000 different types are currently known. I'm not even sure if that number includes all the varieties of a particular kind of active component in plants. I'm not sure that that's all the varieties. It may be, but it's a huge number. And you can see why plants have them for defense and for many things, right? So Cinnamate, sorry, I got to get to Cinnamate, but first I got to finish with this. So she says there's 3 main groups, at least as science understands it right now. There's this terpenes group, there's the phenolics like polyphenols and everything, and there's the alkaloids, these three sort of main categories. And here's what she says about Cinnamate. She's particularly talking about Yerba Mate, which is the main ingredient in Cinnamate. It contains specific terpenes, phenolics, and alkaloids. So all 3 groups are in Cinnamate, all 3 of them of the variety of classification. And so she talks about how so often we're looking for one thing to address one thing. And we all know, because we listen to Valerie every week, you can't look at it that way. You'll be frustrated, and it's very expensive to go at it that way. You can do it and start down the road, but it's the expensive way to do it. So because Yerba Mate is a whole plant, and Cinnamate is actually made up of 5, and all of them are whole plant compounds. We don't just take little pieces out of them. So it's highly complex, much more complex than any pharmaceutical you're going to find, much more complex. Huge range of benefits. So here's a look at what they look like when they're little. This yerba mate that's in Mate, abundant in Paraguay, ways that they're drunk. They usually drink the tea. We're not doing this. We're actually extracting the full leaf and oh man, the Spanish word's coming to my mind, stem, the whole leaf and stem, because that's the part with all of the best, the fullest complement of known beneficial compounds. And here's what's in it. Look at all, this is just a little piece, a little picture. Quercetin, theobromine, theophylline, manganese, potassium, zinc, calcium, iron, selenium, magnesium. So as we learn about cycles, we're going to see a lot of familiar, this really makes sense. Look at all the vitamins, look at all the B vitamins and beta carotene and flavonols and polyphenols. In fact, 15 amino acids, 24 different vitamins. The number's 180 some odd compounds, 180 just in yerba mate, which to me qualifies it as a super food, a super nutritious food. So why does she bring this up? Well, she was making the point that Valerie asked me to talk about. Well, I've heard that there's caffeine in yerba mate. Why is that not addictive? Because if you've ever drunk mate for a period of time, there's zero addictiveness, there's zero crash. Okay, why do we not have that if there's caffeine in it? And why does it not produce some of these effects that caffeine? Because caffeine most definitely. I like that point that I learned today in Valerie's. I did not know that it led to more estrogen dominance. So xanthines are one of these categories that are in yerba mate. Stimulate they're bronchodilators, oppose adenosine, alert our central nervous system, make us more focused, better memory, better cognitive function. And methylated xanthines, there are three of those, three in yerba mate. Caffeine, theobromine, and theophylline. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that third one right. Look what they do. They stimulate the heart rate, digestion, and they relax smooth muscles. Valerie's talk about intestinal movement being key in all this. One of the things when I first drank yerba mate, they called it, that's what they called it, a digestive. Many people, it was simply a digestive for them. But these are different than typical xanthines, the ones that are in here. Okay, and they all have different functions. The only thing they have in common is they relax smooth muscle. So you can think about it with the bowels, but I'm sure Valerie and some of the others of you who are kind of more into the physiology could bring up all sorts of other functions where we have smooth muscle, and relaxing that will help the body to rebalance. So the problem is with caffeine in plants, yes, it relaxes smooth muscle, but it also has other side effects. Mate is the only one I'm aware of, the only one of caffeine in plants that doesn't do this, and here's why. So here's from Dr. Mowry, director of Mountain West Institute of Herbal Sciences. It turns out that yerba mate is not identical to caffeine. It differs in some rather dramatic ways. Some members of the scientific community still resort to calling matine, which is what they're calling the caffeine in yerba mate, a South American term for caffeine, like the word in Spanish. It's not true. Or to maintaining, he continues, imperfect knowledge of the falseness of the assertion that the two substances so similar chemically must have the same properties. Well, anyone that would maintain that has never used it, has never eaten it or drunk it. But he continues, slowly they're being forced to acknowledge the distinction between matine and caffeine. So I will tell you that battle is not won yet. It is not being referred to as matine. They still are just bent on calling it caffeine in yerba mate. And here's the difference. Okay, what's the difference between matine and caffeine? Well, matine, or the caffeine in yerba mate, I'm not so caught up in the term. The way that it is, the way that it exists, which is slightly different, okay? It is not habituating, addicting at all. It's actually better for sleep, not worse for sleep, which caffeine is, and it improves muscle performance without the crash after effect. It's also able to be used by sensitive individuals. Now, there also is theobromine in yerba mate. And when you compare those, theobromine's longer lasting, more stamina. It has a smoother effect, not so much jerking up and down on the body. And it is a blood vessel dilator. and versus the opposite, which creates higher blood pressure. Okay, and that's why sometimes people think, well, won't my blood pressure be affected with not with yerba mate? This is why we're showing the slide why. So, I was low, 196 beneficial chemical compounds. Can you believe this? Many are common with green tea, and some of the things that they're talking about with wines, the beneficial compounds in wines, yerba mate actually outperforms those in what's in it. So here's kind of a final little thing, and I know I'm going to skip. I apologize. Okay. Caffeine in coffee and colas and other sources actually impairs sleep, impairs memory, causes anxiety. That is the cumulative effect of a lot of caffeine. Yerba mate enhances memory, does not cause anxiety, and actually can improve sleep. So there are some really marked differences. Those aren't all. Those are just what Dr. Allison brings up. But I mean, it's a wonderful presentation. If you ever want all the slides, and I could send them to Valerie. She just did a whole presentation on yerba mate. Why is it such an amazing adaptogen? And I might add, that's the difference. It's also adaptogenic. So yes, I hope, Valerie, I took way longer than 2 minutes, but once again, I'm deeply and sincerely apologizing. Back to you.
You did great. No worries. That was perfect. That's exactly what I wanted, because I had the concern. It was very important to me because I know people have heard and been misinformed that caffeine is in the yerba mate. And that, since we just talked about how that could cause issues here, I want people to be clear that our yerba mate is not going to do that. So let's see here. So let's listen to Micah's story.
Good evening, soul friends. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the two products that I love that have helped regulate my hormones. The first being the Soul Maca XD, and the second being the XL packets. Both of these have regulated my hormones and regulated my cycles. My cycles are almost to the day, which is truly amazing in itself. But on top of that, I have absolutely no PMS symptoms. If I'm not looking at a calendar, I won't know that my cycle is going to happen even on the day that it happens, which is truly amazing. I hope that you guys can get on a routine like this, regulate your cycles, and it's really going to improve your lifestyle. So please look into it. The benefits of maca are endless. So I hope you guys have a great evening. Thanks. Bye.
Micah's another one that I'd known her for years, and she definitely came to me with struggles. And so Soul definitely made life a lot easier for her. So, as I always teach, I think it is imperative that you listen to your body. And women, if we listen, our body will tell us about our cycles and what's going on, and you know what to look for. Let me give you some ideas here. So let's say that you had a sudden change in your cycle. Investigate, pay attention. What was different in the last 30 days? Were there unusual stressors? Did you have a diet change? Was there a medication that was introduced? Um, Things like that, and see if there's a connection, because it's so much easier at that point when it first changes to realize, well, it was just a stress because of such and such coming on, and you realize, okay, especially if you go back to being regular the next month. Or did you introduce more meat in your diet, and the meat wasn't as healthy as the meat that as pure as the meat you'd been using before? These are important things to listen to, as because no matter what, we're going to keep dealing with these cycles up until you go into menopause. And then you have a whole different way that the hormones are acting. And that will help set the platform for how easily you transition into menopause as well. So again, pay attention, investigate, and I'm all about that. Let's get the information, talk to other women, see if anyone else is experiencing those same types of things. A cycle should be as easy and painless and just normal everyday life as what we've heard both Micah and Allison talk about, and some of these other women. Notice also what lifestyle or supplement additions made changes for the better that you've done. And then commit to 90 days of consistency. so that you can truly give your body that platform, start getting it started to make a more permanent change. And then finally, your body listens to you. Talk nicely to it. You have no idea some of the comments when you listen to it from that point of view. When women talk about their cycles, their body really starts to think that it hates that you hate certain parts of it. I've listened to one young person in particular that used to talk about that they just want to take their uterus out and slam it up against the wall. I mean, that is not being very loving. I mean, but it also was showing what type of pain they were dealing with. So again, it doesn't have to be this way. There are potentials, answers that can make a difference. So let's look at one or two more testimonies here. This person was on Vital, Cinemate, and Renew, mostly regularly since February, and their periods became regular. When they added in the Excel 2 months ago, they noticed that they did not cramp at all this month. And they said this was huge. They'd always had severe menstrual issues. So they were on all 4 drinks, just like we heard the other gal. And then this lady had a diagnosis of both PCOS and endometriosis. Said she had horrific random cycles that were ongoing, heavy bleeding, and painful. She's continually been taking the Solmaca XD, the Megas, the Vital Cinemate, and after 3 months, so there's that 90-day period, her cycles were back and continued to be on a 28-day cycle. She said it had been 1 year, and these products have been the only thing that has helped me with my feminine issues. Not even low birth control worked this well. So it took 3 months to get things regulated, and then she has stayed on the products to maintain. So if we look at what we've talked about with using the Bella Health Program and longevity as a foundation, I just want to show you how every one of these products actually were talked about tonight or referenced in ways that it can help support the cycle. Let's say that you have started on this program and it didn't quite um, resolve you or absolve you of all the issues. You have multiple other things you can choose from. Pick one of these or 2 of these to add to it for a month or 2 and see the changes. See if that's the finishing touch, because you already have the core built there. And now understanding and being reminded that the Bella Health Program works on that digestive core with the body, you understand why it can have this type of an impact. And then our quote for the week says, good health is not something we can buy. However, it can be an extremely valuable savings account. And that's exactly how I look at it. I look at it as putting money in my emergency health savings account so that in stressful times or unexpected occurrences that happen in life, that I have that to pull from. Something you hope you never have to pull from. And it gives you great peace of mind to know that you're building up that reserve, but it gives you even more peace of mind when you have it to pull from. So again, looking at it to me, it's probably one of the most valuable savings accounts that I have ever had. So for our next program, we will be talking in depth about Vital, which I literally look at as a powerhouse nutritional drink. And I'm very excited to get in depth. A lot of people know that is my very absolute favorite product. If there's one product that I probably 99.9% of the time start people on, it is the Vital. So I hope that you will join us when we talk about that.